the money. Michigan Republican Congressman Thaddeus McCotter joins us now from Capitol Hill. So thank you for joining us first off. But let me take a step back here. I know from recent history you're against a TARP bailout package, but you were in favor of a Detroit bailout package. If they were to turn to TARP for the bailout money, would you be in favor, therefore, of that method of raising money for the big three or the big two?
Absolutely. Of course, it was a last resort. Now, one of the things that happens once you get elected to office is that when people make bad decisions, it is incumbent upon you to try to make them less bad. So what we're seeing here is while I oppose the TARP, I still am under a duty to make the best of a bad situation. In many ways, members of Congress should start coming to work in boots and overalls because we spend a lot of time making fertilizer out of manure. If we can take some of the money from TARP that's going to Wall Street and put it into Main Street for a bridge loan for the auto industry, I will fulfill my responsibility to my constituents to make a prior bad decision better for them.
But Congressman, that TARP money as allocated by Congress, and I believe this is a legal phrasing as well, was for financial institutions, savings and loans, insurance company, broker-dealers. Nowhere in there does it say that this money can go to an automaker, to a pet store. How can we fund the money from TARP immediately to the automakers? How's this going to work?
The money under TARP, which the legislation of which I made the mistake of reading evidently, allowed for a flexibility clause. As you remember, the first part of it was supposed to be troubled asset relief purchases from the marketplace to recapitalize. The reality is there's a second clause that allows the Treasury, the Secretary of Treasury, to go purchase troubled assets or financial markets instruments that has any effect on the stability of financial markets. The argument, therefore, is twofold. One, that the crash of the auto industry into bankruptcy would affect financial markets, and secondarily, but more importantly to me, the new foreclosures that would come from the unemployment that would result will significantly retard the TARP's ability to help stabilize financial markets.
Well, let's take it one step further. Let's say they do tap the TARP for the $15 billion or whatever it may require to until Barack Obama becomes president. Are you now looking for the second $350 billion? Because this would exhaust the first $350 of TARP. Would you look for that second $350 billion to be signed off on by yourself, your group, and allow that money to be open to financial institutions and, frankly, now anyone who may have an effect on the financial markets?
Well, not just now. It was when legislation was passed. The second answer to that question is no, because we need to see what the program has done, where we are in the process. We need to know what institutions, now including the auto companies, have done to deserve that help from the taxpayers, what they're going to do to restructure in the future, how they're accountable for that money. So the answer to that is Congress has never really done its due diligence over the program that has been instituted within the financial area, and they will have to do that. And hopefully some of that will be modeled on what the auto industry has had to go through to get in front of them. So I think it is way too premature to do that. Secondarily, I'm not quite sure that we have spent all the money, because as a member of Financial Services, the information that we were given as early as this week was a total of roughly $200 billion that had gone to financial institutions. If the number is larger, that means we will have to continue our oversight in that area.
Let me ask you something. Ron Gettelfinger, UAW, he came out today and said that we have done all that we've agreed to do. He basically was saying that the unions are needed in this country. But they did not agree to wage concessions last night. That is why this failed with Senate Republicans. We're hearing, go ahead, respond to that first, because they are not going to reopen those contracts, which are in place until 2011. If total compensation, there's a $30 difference, total compensation between U.S. wages and jobs and Toyota, for example.
Yes, I know that. Yeah,
he's going to have to come in. Go ahead, but he's going to have to come in.
Yes, one, I'm shocked by any elected official saying that the solution to a recessed economy is for American workers to make less. Second, President Gettelfinger of the UAW did say that they were prepared to make concessions. This is one of the fundamental problems that we see with the legislation and why it was stopped.
But Congressman, he would not commit to a time frame, and that is why this failed last night.
No, that is not why. The problem was we had sent a bill over from the House. We'd used existing funds that were appropriated for the auto industry's purposes, changed the purpose, allowed for liquidity. This is where the rub comes in. We had set up a process with a car czar appointed by President Bush to bring the stakeholders together in what amounted to a pre-packaged negotiated restructuring of the auto industry. What some in the Senate were trying to do was determine the outcome of those negotiations in legislation. It is not the role of the United States Senate to turn into a bankruptcy court and predetermine and negotiate the outcome. Ironically, coming from Michigan, one of the senators complained that it had taken 6 to 7 hours to negotiate a significant reduction in union members' wages. I remember the days when this would take weeks to months to be done. It actually shows how much progress has been made between the big three and the UAW, and that these negotiations and many of the concessions and many of the restructuring hard, difficult decisions that have been made more in a partnership, realizing that the ultimate viability of the car companies is in both management and unions' interests, and as we know, in the interest of the taxpayers of the United States.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Congressman Thaddeus McCotter from Michigan, thanks for being with us, sir.
All right, Adam Shapiro's live from a GM.